One and two, two and one.
Chief, front row, baby. Front and center.
Head of the class.
Could I have your attention, please, in the absence of the, oh, well. I'm sorry.
I'm just mentally absent, maybe.
You saw last meeting, didn't you? You came back 3 weeks earlier than you're supposed to be.
That's exactly right. I thought I cannot give up to Ron Thomas that easy. No.
Speaker. We're glad
I
you're
want
back.
to make a motion. I want
Good
to
to
make a
be
motion.
back. All right, well, welcome to the work session. I believe this is February the 26th, and Tony Bishop will lead us in prayer.
May we pray. Father, we thank you for this day. We thank you for all your blessings. We thank you for our community in which we live. Thank you for all our city employees and the things that they do and their daily duties that they do for our community. We ask that you be with all of our citizens and be with those who lost loved ones, with them and comfort them. Be with the sick and shut in, and just be with them and comfort them as well. Be with this meeting. Watch over us, guide us, and direct us. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Join us in the pledge, please. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first on the agenda tonight, Dr. Michael and Michelle Kruger. Sure.
Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the council and everyone in attendance. Thank you for allowing me to speak tonight. As you can see in the agenda, this is about medical cannabis. And just for the record, this is not about recreational use. This is about medical use. So again, I'm Dr. Michael Krieger. I'm a board certified orthopedic surgeon, and I'm also a cancer survivor. About a year and a half ago, I had kidney cancer, had to have a kidney part of it removed, Found out the margins were a little questionable, had to have the same surgery 6 days later. Kidney cancer is a little specific in that it doesn't do well with chemo. So that's why this is a little bit more near and dear to me. Again, I'm speaking on behalf of all cancer patients, not just myself, and also all of Kentuckians who have other ailments or diseases or problems that medical cannabis can help. And again, this is cannabis, and I'm just going to shorten it to cannabis for the rest of the talk because it's one word less, but it is medical. It is a medicine, not a gateway drug. It's not an addictive drug. It's not something you can overdose on. It's truly a medicine, okay? I really strongly urge that you support House Bill 166 and Senate Bill 118, again, for medicine, medical use. Not necessarily for recreational. That's not this talk. This is medical use only, okay? Cannabis has been proven to already treat and take care of numerous ailments, seizure disorders, Parkinson's disease, anxiety disorder, bipolar disorder, depression, cancer. There's some literature out there and some studies show that it can stabilize diabetes, can help reduce blood pressure and make someone with high blood pressure more normal, tensive or normal blood pressure. Recently, our state assembly had passed something stating it needs more medical research. It really doesn't need any more medical research. There's hundreds, if not thousands of articles that date back 10, 20, 30 years, and it's good literature. It's not just a doctor standing up there trying to make a name for themselves saying, my patient did great. It's actually proven. We tried this worked against other things. Again, the important thing is for prompt passage now. Now, that doesn't mean if it got passed today that it would be given out to patients tomorrow. Just like every other medicine that I and every other physician has had to go through, you have to have training. You have to learn about it. Just like prescribing Percocet or Tylenol as a prescription drug or Advil or something like chemotherapy, you have to take prescription or you have to take pharmaceutical classes. You have to understand how it works. This would be no different. This would be something that if it's passed, assuming it would be passed, that physicians who would volunteer to sign up to prescribe this, they would have to demonstrate him or her has had to take in a class. They've had to pass the class. They actually have to prescribe it for something that it's supposed to be for, and you have to keep that education going. Just like any other medicine, you have to understand to do this. Those of you in the audience who are not physicians, you can't prescribe medicines because you've not had the training. If not every doctor or physician could prescribe the medicine if he or she has not had the training. So this is something that truly, I think, can help not only cancer patients, but all Kentuckians. It can help people with the above mentioned disorders that I said, and it's something that does work. Not can work, not does it work, or will it work, it does work. It has been proven to work. Numerous other states have had it, and it does work for those patients. A member in our audience, her daughter has had, or her child has had numerous seizures and taken 4 or 5 different medications and hundreds of seizures a week down to 0 medications and maybe 1 seizure a week. I have some colleagues that should remain nameless because of HIPAA violation. They recommend for their pediatric patients to take this already, to go to Colorado and get it because nothing we have here works for their seizures. And they're down to 0 seizures. And they live in our community here in Elizabethtown. So this is something that can work. This is something that I think should be passed, but like every other medicine, it needs to be regulated. It needs to be educated. It needs to be physician written, not over the counter at CVS, not over the counter at Walmart, but a medicine, just like all other medicines written by doctors. So, thank you. Is this a Q&A session or is this just a talk?
Well, I do have a
Okay,
question for you, Dr.
sorry.
Kruger.
Yes, sir.
Are you espousing the use of the THC, the psychoactive drug, or the non-psychoactive drug?
Well,
the cannabinoids.
correct. Potentially it could be both. CBD oil does not have the psychoactive effects, but THC oil can have psychoactive effects. Does not all the time, but it can. And that, again, would come with regulation. There's an orthopedic surgeon in Pennsylvania that for all of their total joints that they do, total hips, total knees, all that stuff, they get no pain medicine. It's THC oil or CBD oil only. And the THC oil is obviously more regulated and would have to be, you have to watch a little bit more with interactions than with just CBD oil. But it is something that could be weaned off quickly to bode more for the CBD oil because there are those risks.
Now, you
espousing the delivery of using pills or oils or anything, whether it's psychoactive or non-psychoactive, or you have been actually allowing people to smoke it? What
Well,
type of delivery system are you espousing?
Sure. To be honest with you, I think part of it depends on the patient. So if someone has had esophageal cancer or the tube that you swallow food going into your stomach, if they've had that removed, you can't swallow anything anymore. So taking a pill would be very difficult.
It's about injection.
Now, injections, I have to do a little bit more research on that. They haven't had as much of an IV delivery on that as much as it's been either a topical where you can rub it on your skin and it can leach into and absorb, or an oil. Now, most people, even if they've had esophageal or stomach issues, they can still take an oil because it is indeed just an oil. It's not a hard pill. As far as smoking it, that, to be honest with you, I'd have to get into a little bit more, because taking an actual cannabis and smoking it, you have to worry about inhalation. And just like tobacco, the problem is not the nicotine, it's the carcinogens in the smoke. So it could be something that could be either a vape or it could be an e-cigarette with an oil that way, as opposed to truly having a marijuana joint or something like that. That could be not what we're talking about here. It's medicine.
Dr. Crew, you,
Yes, sir.
as far as the current legality in Kentucky, you mentioned something about somebody going to Colorado and got it and came back. Can somebody do that now in Kentucky? I mean, go to Colorado or wherever and get it and come back and use it in Kentucky legally?
Depends on what you're talking about. If it's THC oil, you have to use that technically in the states that that allows the THC oil.
Kentucky does not.
Kentucky does not. That's correct. Now, hemp oil is, you can order that online and it can be shipped to your state right here. And in all 50 states, that is one version or one strand of cannabis that can be used to help, because those do have anti-inflammatory, anti-seizure effects with it, even though it's a different strand than the cannabis plant. But there are dozens of different strands specifically titrated for those ailments. Yes, ma'am.
The cannabis oil that's sold downtown, the little store beside
Mhm.
Bob, is that what you're talking about?
It's hemp and it's like that, but it's a little bit, like I said, there's more strains derived towards medical use, so they're a little bit more potent and therefore could not be sold in a store like the herb next to Vibe, because it would have to be prescription by a physician. So kind of like you can take over-the-counter Advil, or you can take a little bit more bumped up Advil or other anti-inflammatories that require prescription. Some may not, some may work okay for some things, and some may need a little bit more power to help with more anti-inflammatory effects in that case.
Is what's sold here that the mayor mentioned, is that medicinal? I mean, you rub that on you, is that?
Correct. I don't personally have not investigated that one, so I have to plead a little ignorance
We're
on that one.
not talking about cannabis there. I mean,
It's hemp oil. It's not necessarily cannabis. So it is a little bit of apples to oranges. Yes, sir.
Okay, and you talked about cancer.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and how does it heal cancer?
Sure. It does it by 3 different systems. So cancer cells, by definition, are abnormal. Okay. So when your cells replicate or when they divide, something happens inside the nucleus or the cell that holds all of our DNA and all of our chromosomes, and something goes wrong, and it, instead of making A, B, C, D, it makes A, B, G, D. It makes something that's abnormal in there. Okay. And as that cell grows, that cell is abnormal, and it promotes a certain chemical. And what happens is cannabis, as it gets it binds the CBD receptors and cannabinoid receptors on the cell. Those are already there. We didn't invent those. Those were there. The good Lord put them there for us. When those receptors are bound, 3 things happen. 1, it permeates the cells, means it puts holes in it, kind of like a sponge. So when that happens, fluid can rush in and it dissolves the cell, much like bacitracin or the triple antibiotic ointment works to kill. That's how that kills bacteria. Another way is it actually goes in and it causes the digestive enzymes within the cells to open up, and that will also kill the cell. But it has to have the key to that lock. Okay. And the third one is it shuts down the regulation of that chemical that's produced by cancer cells. Ceramide. It's the ceramide receptors on there that only cancer produces. So if you don't have cancer, this cell cannot burst because you don't have the right lock for that key to open up. But when that ceramide is produced, the cannabinoid receptors are then expressed, and when the CBD binds to its CBD receptor, it then opens that lock, and suddenly you can diminish that. And that's the part that's actually scientifically proven with literature. And you can go online and find different websites that have really nice pictures. And if you want to follow up, I'm happy to provide that. I don't have it on me right now. I apologize. But what it does do is it will actually, those 3 ways, and it only does that for cancer expressing cells. It does not do that for normal cells. It does not do that for a shoulder or for a knee or something that's not bothering you, but it does do it because that cancer produces the ceramide.
So what are you asking of us?
What I'm asking of you is to pass the resolution to support those bills. Now, I'll be honest with you, I don't know the Kentucky politics in terms of if a city assembly says one thing or a city council does. I have to, I guess, plead to your all's judgment on that. This is as much politics as I've ever been in my life, okay? So I'm a little bit unfamiliar with the city council versus different states and how they are. So I guess I'm asking for
You're asking for us to support this.
to support the resolution, yes, ma'am. Because I do think it would benefit our community. But again, medical cannabis, this is different.
And Dr. Kruger,
Yes, sir.
are you asking for the prescription of this or more research into it as well? Because I've read the Cochrane review and you know, a lot of terminology they use is it's probably effective in this. It may help
Sure.
in this. And I can understand the money going to research to prove this to where we're not saying probably anymore.
Sure.
Going away from anecdotal to actual
Oh,
quantitative data.
Absolutely. And I guess yes to both. Okay. Of course, we can always use better literature. Technically, there's not a single study that says smoking causes lung cancer, but it probably does. And you're 16 times more likely to get lung cancer if you smoke, but it doesn't cause it. So I think could always be more medical research to help understand, to better utilize something that we are still learning as a society, as physicians, we're still learning the benefits of it. However, I do think in order to get that step in the door, personally, I think on a nationwide scale, if you take it off of Schedule I that other medicines are on, then you can introduce more of this. You can allow, hey, we can do more research. We can do this kind of stuff. It's hard to do research on something that's not legal. So IRB boards, it's institutional review boards for universities, for things like that. It's difficult for them to even get funding to do the research until you bring it off of that status and allow it to be legally prescribed by physicians. Again, this is not something that's an over-the-counter. You're not going to get medical cannabis in the oil shop next to Vibe over there. This is prescribed by a physician.
Yeah, and I, understand it, but I take a lot of people's concerns in our community throughout the state. It's that they confuse the recreational marijuana with the medical marijuana. I think they confuse the situation of what's happening in Colorado with what may happen in Kentucky. And certainly, if we're wanting to do more research in the medical arena,
Mhm.
that we need to make people aware that this is research for medical only. You can't go down to the store, buy a pound of marijuana and go and smoke it and have some pizza with your buddies. And
Exactly.
make sure that it's
Right, and I do believe that is truly an apples to oranges discussion. And right now, what I'm pro and what I'm for and what I'm, I guess, petitioning, begging, throwing myself at your mercy for is medical only, not for recreational use.
Dr. Kruger, the only comment I'd make is, and for the council as well, I think this is a debate that is probably closer to the surface now than it has been in the past. I believe it's a debate that's going to be held at the state level, not in local forums like ours.
Okay,
And the reason I say that is because my guess is it's going to be debated hours and hours and hours with testimony from people from both sides. And even though in a city council meeting like this, we hear your side
yes, sir.
and we understand a little more about your side, we could march many, many groups in to combat or to be in opposition of what you've said. And I certainly do not feel like that I've studied it enough to where I would sign a resolution to send to our state legislators by any means. I appreciate you being here.
Yes, sir.
And I appreciate learning a little bit more about it, but I believe that this debate is going to be at a state level, not at a local level.
Okay.
And I think your expectations are a little great if you think, based on your presentation, which I appreciate once again you being here, but we can't sign off on a resolution that says to our state legislators, this is what our citizens want. So, my opinion anyway.
No problem.
Any other comments? Or-
Sorry.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Michael Page. Something long in the making, the El Dorado Sewer Project. Wow.
Afternoon, council. Welcome back, Mayor.
Thank you.
Anticipated sanitary sewer project that was budgeted for this year was the El Dorado sanitary sewer rehab project, which will replace an existing failing sewer main that runs the extents of El Dorado Drive. February 8th, we had a bid opening. 4 bids were delivered. Cleary Construction was the low bidder at $423,322.20. A bid item was asphalt surface overlay, which we have a better contract price with Scottish Paving for that. So we would be omitting that from the final contract amount, which would reduce that to $383,992.20. This amount is higher than what the project was budgeted for, which was $350,000. But with the underruns of our sewer capital budget, we should be able to compensate for this addition. So this would be brought to you all, I believe, next week for your all's approval. And if it does get awarded, approved and awarded soon after next week, we'll have a public meeting with those affected El Dorado Drive and move on from there.
So this was in our last past budget?
This current budget,
Yes,
yes.
this current budget.
Have we worked with this contractor before?
We have. They're actually doing the Moon Street project that's almost finished with sewer, sanitary sewer.
Would this include that entire neighborhood basically out there?
No, just the extents of El Dorado Drive from
One
St.
street?
John's. Yes, 1,800 feet.
Just the ones that kind of connected on to
St.
it.
John,
It's been a problem for some time.
It has. It's on a regulatory PM schedule, preventative maintenance for public works, and we get quite a few calls in from residents out there that they're anticipating this project to be done soon.
Like, we're just taking the overlay out, not the pavement replacement.
That's correct.
Michael, what's your projected time of this project?
If we get this awarded next week and they begin, we've got a contract end date being June 29th. So once they get going, it'll get done relatively quickly.
Is our, we have a contract with Scotty's for the pavement part 2, right? So is ours less than these bids that?
Yes, yeah, we always put them in there just to see if
Overlay and
it,
replacement. So we're taking out actually the overlay and the replacement, those 2 items, right?
not the,
10?
not the replacement, because the way that some contractors will bid out that item, they may include other improvements with that item. We don't know clearly how they came up with that number, but with the bituminous surface overlay, that's pretty much just a paving company. They're probably using the same paving company as we use to finish that.
And again, overlay is what we're taking out.
That's correct.
Okay.
And we would do that through our public works street budget.
Everybody good with this?
Yeah.
Okay, Michael. West 62 West.
Yes, just to give you a little history, Mr. John Knight constructed a sanitary sewer main to his property, a Nice Mechanical. He's owner of Nice Mechanical on Litchfield Road. And that was done in 1993. And the estimated cost of that project is $33,402.92. At the time of this construction, Mr. Knight was told that if anyone else connected to the sewer main, that he could be reimbursed. Recently, Cecilia Valley Elementary School connected to the sewer main, and in turn, Mr. Knight has asked for that reimbursement. We are proposing to reimburse Mr. Knight through an allocation process. This process would have Mr. Knight be responsible for the allocation costs for his property that is being served by the sewer, and would be reimbursed for the remaining allocation costs minus the sewer service connection fees that we do not have any record of him paying for. So that total reimbursement we are proposing is $14,830.48. And the city will recover the remaining allocations when the remaining properties connect to the sewer. So we're asking tonight that if the council would be give us permission to proceed in forming the sanitary sewer allocation.
How does Mr. Knight, have you talked to him?
I have, and he's doesn't have any qualms with what we presented to him.
You got my blessing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Michael.
All due respect, ladies and gentlemen of the council, on the cannabis issue, it did say Michael and Michelle. If it, please, would you allow my wife to also speak on her behalf? She prepared to speak. Did say both of our names on it.
Yeah.
Sure.
I know you said y'all didn't want to sign a resolution, but here's the.
Thank you.
My name is Michelle Krieger. I am the wife of Michael. We live here in Elizabethtown. I'm here today to express my support for Kentucky's medicinal cannabis bills. To begin with, I'd like to give you a short summary of my nursing history. I've been a registered nurse for nearly 20 years. In those years, I've worked in practically every facet of nursing except for transplant. Early on in my nursing career, I worked as an oncology nurse administering chemotherapy to patients in my hometown of Flemingsburg, Kentucky. My patients were parents of fellow classmates, teachers I had while I was in school. I administered chemo for 2.5 years and lost over half of my cancer patients, not to their cancer, but to the horrible side effects of chemotherapy. Fast forward 15 years, my husband is diagnosed at the age of 38 with kidney cancer. We found it by accident. He hurt his back moving furniture and had an MRI that revealed a golf-sized tumor in his left upper kidney. My first thought was, dear God, please do not have to let him take chemo. I immediately started researching alternative treatments for kidney cancer because I was just wanting to see what all was out there. It had been so long since I'd given chemo. Ran across CBD and THC oils. Mike told you how it worked. Chemotherapy is not effective on his type of kidney cancer. We found out a day later. Immunotherapy or CBD THC oil is, however, effective. My husband subsequently had a left nephrectomy and is now considered cancer-free. He is required to have a CT with contrast every 3 months to make sure that the cancer has not spread to his brain, bone, and lung. 3 months after my husband's cancer diagnosis, my sister was diagnosed with left breast cancer on her 45th birthday. Stage 1 HER negative, not requiring chemotherapy. She opted for a left mastectomy. 3 months after that, she was diagnosed with right breast cancer. And it was stage 1 HER positive, which did require chemo. As you can imagine, I was completely devastated. I went with her every single chemotherapy infusion. I am here today to tell you this information for this purpose. If my husband's cancer ever comes back, his only treatment would be immunotherapy, Herceptin, or CBD or THC oil. If my sister's cancer were to ever recur, chemo and radiation would be recommended. But CBD and THC oil has much better results in killing cancer cells with no side effects whatsoever. CBD oil and THC oil is not addictive. You cannot overdose on them, as popular belief. If you or someone you loved more than yourself had an illness that CBD and THC oil would provide a cure or a relief from, pain, symptoms, wouldn't you at least want that option to choose? We have so many choices for medication that can alleviate a headache over the counter. All the options can be lethal if taken improperly. CBD, THC oil is not lethal, it's non-addictive, and it cannot be overdosed on. My children, I have two. I have a 5-year-old little boy who's sitting right there. His name is Colton, and I have an 11-year-old little girl. They are much more likely to get some type of cancer, kidney cancer, breast cancer, because of our genetics and the hereditary nature of cancer. I'm not asking for you to send a resolution to Frankfurt in support of House Bill 166 and Senate Bill 118. I'm begging you to. I'm not asking, I'm begging. I'm begging you for a resolution to be sent in support of these two bills as a sister, as a wife, and as a mother. And just as a side note, I know that this is probably me coming back up here to speak after Micah spoke is probably made your night longer. I appreciate y'all staying and listening to me. But just today, I had a client. I own a med spa downtown Serendipity, and I had a client that I was doing microblading her eyebrows. And she is terminally ill with cancer, and she wanted her eyebrows back because all the chemotherapy that she had taken had made all of her eyebrows and her eyelashes fall out. So she was telling me about her cancer, and I was asking her questions and educating her on CBD and THC oil. She said, you know, Michelle, she said, I would rather not take any pain medicine that they prescribe me and go with pain so I can enjoy life. It is a quality of life. She said, I would rather have that pain than be in bed with an opioid or a narcotic. And I know that you all are, it's just city council. I know that what you had expressed before, that it does need to be voted on at a higher level. But Lexington, Louisville, how many other different towns, Paintsville, have sent resolutions? And I know that this is very unfamiliar, especially if you're not in medicine, and even people in medicine. My husband had no idea about it until I researched it because I thought he was dying. I mean, and then when my sister got diagnosed with breast cancer, it literally devastated me. I did not know what to do. I tried to get her to go to Colorado. She refused. But this is our, think about if it's somebody that you loved more than yourself. And I know everybody in this room has somebody like that. If you knew something that would help them, at least have it as an option. I mean, and I don't know if this will ever get voted on, if we will ever get to vote on this here, because we vote our representatives in to represent us. But if it ever is, I would hope to God that y'all do your research on it, because it's a miraculous drug. It really is. It's God put it here. We have an endocannabinoidal system built into our bodies that have the receptors for it. It can be abused just as anything else can, just like alcohol, just like bourbon can be abused, but it can help in a medical way. When I worked in surgery, we used cocaine every single day in surgery for ENT. Did y'all know that? Cocaine used in surgery every day in the United States, but it is outlawed. You can overdose on cocaine. Happens all the time, but it is used as a medicine because it helps during surgery. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
I've got a question for you.
Yes.
How many pages long is House Bill 166?
How long is it, Julie? Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
It's a 65-page proposed bill that we have not studied.
Mhm.
And I just think it's a little much to ask us to sign off and to request that that be passed when we have not studied or debated it.
Mhm.
And all I'm simply saying is that I think that debate is going to be had, but it's going to be had at a state level and not at the local level. That's my only.
Okay.
And I imagine the Senate bill is equally as long and as complicated, you know.
I don't know how long.
But we
the
can
Senate
certainly,
was.
we can certainly contact our representatives.
I've contacted mine and I've contacted ones that aren't mine. I've contacted everybody but Santa Claus to listen.
And ask them to listen to both sides, and, you know.
There's a lot of representatives that are very close-minded. There's a lot of politicians who have hemp farms, who have a personal vested interest in the hemp industry and not in the CBD or THC industry. There's a lot of corruption in our system, unfortunately, but hopefully one day it'll get passed. And like I say, if my husband, if it ever comes back, we'll be moving to Colorado. You'll never see us here again because I don't want him to die.
Good luck to you guys.
Ms. Krieger,
Yes, sir.
a group of people that would have much more influence in the city council, and my background is biochemistry.
Okay.
So I absolutely know what you're talking about here. Even Tylenol has cannabinoid receptors. That's how Tylenol works. I would think that people that would have more of an influence in the city councils would be your research scientists at the University of Kentucky, to Louisville, Western, Eastern. Have you approached those individuals to lobby on their behalf?
I have approached, when my sister took her chemo, she took it at Markey Cancer. And she took a combination of chemotherapy. And this actually doesn't have anything to do with the CBD, but this just shows you how many red pieces of tape you got to cut through. I made a machine, like a little head cooler thing, and she didn't lose any hair during her chemotherapy. And it was made out of a orthopedic, a Game Ready machine that had ice water that circulated through it. And I was telling them about it. I was so excited that she hadn't lost any of her hair during her chemotherapy. And, I put this thing on her head and ordered it for $200. And, they just were amazed that she didn't lose any hair. And I said, can you please give them out this, tell them where to buy this at? Nope. I said, well, why not? Well, because it's not FDA approved. So she said, well, maybe if you got maybe if you could get someone that was working on, I think, a PhD to write a paper on it. That was as far as that went. And I would imagine that would probably be as far as the THC and the CBD, especially since it's illegal. I mean, considering it's on a Schedule I.
I just highly.
But I agree with you. No, I thought about that. And when they said that about the little head cooler machine, I thought, it's just ice water. I mean, really.
I'm pretty sure you could find some people in the departments of pharmacology, several of these institutions, to help lobby for you folks, because really, city councils and county governments, we really don't have that much influence with this topic, but certainly researchers in those areas would have.
Yeah. No, I've thought about that, and I actually thought about who's the guy that owns the one guy I wanted to approach. The one that I went up to Florida with in Naples, the guy who owns the implant company, the Arthrex. Is it Arthrex? Yeah. Yeah. I had thought, an orthopedic implant guy who owns this Arthrex, he's the sole owner of it. I told Mike, I said, well, why can't I contact him and get him to, because he has his own research team, to do some kind of research on it. I mean, they know the research is done. It's out there. It's just, it's limited because of it being illegal and for so many years.
Thank you for your presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Krueger. Ed Pope?
So the first thing, Mayor, I know Bill and Tony got to meet Jim last week, but Jim Shaw's first day with us today, so welcome, Jim. And
Nice to see you
yeah.
again. Welcome.
So we're glad to have him downstairs.
Did you tell him he had to wear a suit every day like that?
I told him, I said, you're going to be overdressed today. Today is informal. That's all right. That's a good standard to set, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
A couple things, both of the agenda items that I'm going to talk to you all this evening relate to the downtown area. The city was approached by Kentucky Utilities. They're looking at demonstration programs across the state for charging stations for electric vehicles. They contacted Charlie a couple weeks ago, and then this morning we met with 4 representatives from Kentucky Utilities. Their plan is to install 20 charging stations across the state of Kentucky. 10 of them are targeted toward Louisville, 5 in Lexington, and the other 5 will be in various communities that are in KU's service area. So Elizabethtown made the list. We're one of the communities that they would like to install one of the other stations. They're looking at public parking lots right now, kind of a higher profile area, but areas that people will come and visit and probably spend a couple hours at is their thought. We met and found a location in the parking lot down on South Main Street for them that would work. Kentucky Utilities would do the installation. They would put some signage up about the charging stations. They would actually like to use 2 parking spaces. So at this point in time, we would propose to bring before you all a very brief agreement. They're preparing, and we hope to have by the end of the week, that again would designate 2 spaces down in that public lot. It is a demonstration program at this point in time. They don't have any plans to do any more, but they like I said, E-Town is one of the areas that they would like to do it in because of their service area in our community. So like I said, if you all have questions, Charlie and I can try to answer that for you all. But like I said, it's a pretty simple agreement. 2 parking spaces. They pay for all the installation. There's no cost associated with the effort for the city other than letting them use 2 of our spaces in the downtown area.
And if I pull in there and plug up, there's a cost to the electricity I'm using. Who pays for that?
The user.
Okay.
What's their limited time that they can park there? In other words, they hook up, they can't hook up overnight and park their car there. Or do they get a couple of hours?
A couple hours gives them, as we understand it, there's 2 different type of charging stations. Yeah, a more rapid charging station. This is slower. I think they told it. I think they told us for a 2-hour charge, you get the equivalent about 30 to 40 miles on your vehicle. I guess, Bill,
Enough to get you to the next station.
enough to get you back. If you're downtown, I guess it gets you back home or to the next station.
But you know what, though, Ed? It'll all get better. You know, we're just on the front end of this. I mean, it'll get better.
And I think that's why they want to
gotta
do
start
this.
something.
And I think that's why they want to do it in public spaces. I mean, they're not going to private businesses yet and trying to get people to sign up and do them at those locations. We talked to them about would they be looking at potentially efforts with some of the local industry in town in the future as an incentive. And they said that's something they're looking at. But right now they were just looking at public locations. But no, Bill, it's going to be kind of self-regulating. They would put some signage there and ask people to, on the honor system, to use it for a couple hours. But no, there's not going to be somebody from the city, so there's no cost to us to ask the police department to go down and say, oh, how long did Ed sit at the charging station and charge his vehicle up? I saw he pulled in at this time. Because like you said, I mean, the cost is for that user. So there's a charge to do that.
A credit card?
I think that's the system they would use, is some kind of swipe. Yeah. But they do the installation. KU is doing all the installation. They're not asking the city to install, do any of that. It will be I mean, they're tying it directly to one of their transformers from that standpoint. So they're not asking metering. They're not asking the city to pay the bill. It's based on the user paying that. All they want is 2 parking spaces. And like I said, we directed them down to the lot on South Main Street. We thought that would give them some visibility along the roadway. It's also close to the Justice Center, so you've got a high traffic there. It's only a block away from the public square, so as that area develops, it probably gets more use that way too.
I like the idea, and I think we could have a slogan, come to ETM and charge you up. I like
They
that.
are asking for a 5-year agreement.
When the mayor got that, she said you get charged in E-Town.
Sure, I didn't say that.
Charlie said this was a 5-year agreement.
Yeah, I think it's 5 years.
I assume that KU will do it in other of their communities too.
They're, like I said, they're doing 20 across the state,
Okay.
10 in Louisville, 5 in Lexington, and then 5 other KU cities. I know they talked about Midway and us. To be honest with you, I don't know what the other 3 were because it didn't come up in the conversation. But 10 in Louisville because of the bigger market there.
If the demand increases, are they looking to put more in?
That's, I mean, they said this is a demonstration project. KU's footing the bill, so I think they would, Bill. I mean, I think they would. Again, they're looking at more public areas right now, so I don't know if they'd come back to us based on their research and the use and say, can we do something at one of the city parks or something like that. They also mentioned that right now they're kind of targeting interstate areas. I think that's why we made their list because of I-65. So
I like it. I like it.
I like it. Everybody likes it.
okay, we'll continue on with that. The second item wanted to make you all aware of. I know the council has been wanting this day to come for many years from the support that you all gave and the initiation you all took in initially purchasing the Newberry building. That group has gone through before the Preservation Commission. They have submitted their architectural building plans. They have been granted a certificate of appropriateness to do the demolition because of the unstableness of the building. That will start next Monday. As part of that work, the state transportation cabinet is requiring them to close one lane along Dixie just for safety reasons as they get the equipment in and take the building down. The demolition is expected to last 2 weeks, 3 at the outset. So down around the square in front of the current Newberry building, we're going to be down to 1 lane of traffic for about 2 weeks. They have an encroachment permit from the highway department. There will be signage along the roadway as the state requires. The city is trying to do some additional signage just to give motorists a heads up that the lane closures are ahead. But we just wanted, like I said, I know the council has wanted that project to get started. So starting next Monday, we'll see some demolition activity. But as we always talk about with those good things, there is going to be 1 lane of traffic that's going to be really tough around the square for a couple of weeks. So, and we're, the emergency folks will know about it, and we'll hope that, I guess the trains will get through quickly so we don't have too many.
Poplar Drive conditioned us very well. We're ready.
Well, that's, I mean, thank you.
Thank you very much. Excuse me, young man, is your name Brian Baker? Okay. Well, would you? Oh, okay. I believe Ms. Walker had gotten a message. Well, would you like to go up to the podium and tell us who you are and why you're here? Sure you would.
You can do it from there.
That did make like the face of wanting to do that.
Pressure.
You want to comment on that medical?
My name is Larry Barnett. I'm a part of Troop 233 in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. I am a second class, and I'm here because I'm working on my citizenship in the nation merit badge.
Wonderful. Well, it's very, very good to have
Good to have
you.
you, Larry.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Does Troop 233 still meet down in the basement? I used to be there when I was about your age.
You can't imagine that. You can't even imagine the building was there when we
Yeah,
were
the building
there.
is Building's no longer there.
Wow.
And what I can't imagine is ever reaching second class.
Hey, thank you all so very much. So good to be back with you.
Glad to have you back.
I'll speak for yourself.
I was.
Probably invite a lot of people to watch online.
Yeah, I got rid of my robe.
He was ready for it.
People call me Judge.
Yeah, hey, that's right. I'll keep calling you Doug.
Good.
Yeah.